Hello, everybody. We are joined today by Tom Bates. Tom, and
Have you practiced this or what?
no, yeah, we are live. Hi, everybody. We're joined by Tom Bates, the future coach, and he is creating tomorrow's soccer players today. We're also joined by Steve Davis and Kat Nichols, and they'll jump in at some stage. Everybody, thanks for joining us. We hope you're well wherever you are in the world. And this month's core value is actually advice. And I'm sure Tom's going to give us lots of advice as we go through this. Tom, welcome. Tell us about your journey.
Thank you, Chris. Great to be with you again. And just to echo your sentiments there, really wishing everybody who is tuning into this or sees this at a later date a safe, happy and healthy time ahead. It's a privilege to be with you again. And I'm looking forward to the time that we share together.
Brilliant, Tom. Now, without any further avail, tell us about your journey and what prompted you to write the book, The Future Coach, and do the courses.
Very good question. So I'm a failed player. I played in Cambridge, at Cambridge United Football Club in the youth development teams, and essentially wasn't really good enough to make it through to the senior level. But I was fascinated, I guess you could say from a player's perspective at that point, because I was a player that didn't necessarily have that much natural talent and had to work very, very hard to compete at the level that I played at. And then I saw players around me that had a lot of talent, but didn't really possess the attitude to continue to work on that talent. And so I was intrigued. I was intrigued because I wondered if it was possible to improve attitude and to build character, and how much of an impact that a stronger mindset would make on players at that level. But essentially, I didn't make it, didn't transfer into the first team, and studied in Cambridge at Long Road, and studied my A-levels and studied psychology and PE. And came across psychology or sports psychology at Bournemouth University that at the time was offering the first ever course in sports psychology and coaching sciences, which was a combined course and a practically applied designed course. In my third year, allowed me to go out into a placement and work with AFC Bournemouth as a coach. So that was my first step into actually coaching. And I coached in the Centre of Excellence there at AFC Bournemouth for a period of 2.5 years, and spent my time practicing as a sports psychologist with the youth team at AFC Bournemouth under my boss, Eddie Howe, who's of course now the first team manager, and a guy called Joe Roach. And really that was the start of the journey. But I guess you could say that this sort of intrigue as a coach, I was doing my badges, I did my qualifications, I became a UEFA A license coach, working with academies predominantly for 10 years after that. But I realized there was something beyond the X's and the O's, beyond strategy, beyond getting the tactics or formations right. And I became inquisitive. I was curious about how to improve mindset and the influence that a positive mental attitude can have. And so the question arose as a coach, can you start to build character? Can you improve mindset? And of course, the answer is yes. So from that point on, and for the last 20 years, really, I've been working within professional football, but now in a consultancy role with Team GB ahead of the Tokyo Olympic Games, which will now take place next summer, and with a select group of teams and players from the Premier League, the Championship, and the lower divisions. And I guess the culmination of all of those experiences was ended up in me writing my first book, The Future Coach, which is about all of those applied principles in action.
Fantastic. Kat or Steve, do you have any questions so far on that? Did they leave us, Tom? Is it just you and Jack Jones?
Steve, thanks for sharing that, Tom. No, I think, knowing Tom and knowing his story, it's very interesting when you read his book, because I'm not just reading the book and not understanding who the author is. I'm understanding the author before I read the book, and being able to tie in when I read such things as chapter 1, the relationship coach, and I look at the relationship that Tom established with myself, you, Chris, and Kat, I can see a lot deeper than what is just in the book as well. So for those of you that are listening to this, you know, if you ever have any questions, first of all, if you haven't read the book, read the book. But if you have any questions, reach out to Tom, and I think you'll start to understand a lot deeper about who you are in your relationships with your players based on the relationship that Tom will have with you, and he may only just know you for 5 minutes.
Yeah, and I think, you know, Kat, as we're going to come to you next. But having said that, Steve, you know, I went over to England, Tom, remember? And I came to Aston Villa, and you welcomed me with open arms, as it were. And basically, we sat in your office where you invited in, you know, 3 or 4 academy coaches. And to be fair, I think they had more questions for me than I had for them, and you just facilitated the conversation, right? And we'd known each other. I think we'd done a webinar. You'd welcomed me in. I spent, I think it was probably like an hour and a half in your office when you were with Villa. And then I kind of said, well, I got to go. And you were like, well, why? And I'm like, well, my mum and dad are outside. And you came out to the car and you met my parents, and you were like, oh, I'm sorry, you should have come in. And my dad's like, well, I'm a Chelsea fan, not a Villa fan. So no, I'm just, but Steve, you're spot on there with what you're saying. And just having that relationship. And then, of course, fast forward, we were all together at the convention in Chicago. And, you know, shared a couple of drinks, shared meals, had time together, all of us. And Tom, I won't mention the time that we got into the gym. We won't talk about that. But Tom, tell us, you know, and then we'll go to Kat. Tell us a little bit, you know, at what stage did you start thinking it's more than the X's and O's, right? You had this curious mindset. I know that you have a mentor, a friend in Bill Beswick. You know, what started to trigger that, and why? Was it because you were a bit of a failed player? Was it to do with the history of how you were coached? You said you were a failed player, but what triggered that? And then Kat, will come to you.
Yeah, so first of all, I guess that curiosity, and this is a very important thing for anybody listening or tuning into this, because one of the things, one of the greatest books that I've read is called Inside Out Coaching by a guy called Joe Ehrmann, who's an All-American, ex-All-American NFL player. And he has 3 questions in his book, Inside Out Coaching, How Sports Can Transform Lives. And the first question is, why do I coach? Why do I coach? The second question is, why do I coach the way that I coach? Why do I coach the way that I coach? And then the third question was one of the questions that leapt off the page and hit me in the face. I had to put the book down and reflect for a little while. The third question is, how would it feel to be coached by me? How would it feel to be coached by me? So, I mean, in answer to that question, and the reason I bring those 3 questions in here is because reflecting back on my experiences as a player, I realized that I could have actually done with working with somebody like me then. Although, you know, all the way back then, sports psychology really didn't exist. And I had to work for free for the first 3 years of my career to prove that this was of value. And so I was paid as a coach at FC Bournemouth, but I wasn't paid to deliver these sports psychology interventions. And so really as a player, I was continue that search, I guess you could say, and continue to reflect on my previous experiences, both, you know, the triumphant ones, but also the hurtful ones, the painful ones, the ones where I didn't quite make the grade, the ones where I, in quote, failed, and the ones where I perhaps allowed anxiety to get the best of me and didn't perform at my very best. So I was constantly on a quest to try to discover why is it and how is it that I can improve that part of myself, but more importantly, help my players to overcome similar things. And I can't really think of a greater joy than to work with players now and be able to recognize those signs and make some kind of intervention with the training and experience and qualifications, obviously, along the way, to change the path, to help the players and sometimes coaches and staff go further than they possibly thought that they could have gone before. Force about why it is that I do what I do. And I think the reason why all of us here, Steve, Kat, and yourself, Chris, are connected, because you guys have, as you mentioned, the convention, come on board as course ambassadors. You know, part of the core motivation is to find like-minded people, to have an energy team that believe in the message and can also help more and more people. And that's why the Future Coach book was turned into a course. And I asked you guys to become ambassadors, because I believe that this is about making a real positive difference for as many people as possible. And to spread that word with simple, actionable strategies is really part of the the core drive to make a real lasting positive change for players and teams and coaches and managers in soccer, and of course in other sports as well.
Fantastic. Kat, anything to jump in on there?
Yeah, just to kind of echo what Chris and Steve has said, like when I first met Tom, it was 2 years ago up in Philly, and I had been struggling kind of as a coach, like believing in myself and what my purpose really was as a coach. And that November, I'd bought his book, just saw it on Twitter. I was like, oh, that could be interesting. And getting to meet him after I like read the book, I was like, oh my gosh, this guy's real. And it really was like how much he dove in just to like a 20-minute conversation with me on how to truly like believe in myself as a coach, and how that belief in yourself then transfers into players. And that is something that stuck with me. Like I still to this day have a quote in my book that I keep. Any book I read, it's a quote from him that I kind of like my bookmark. But just the power to believe in yourself. And once you find that self-belief, even though we struggle with it daily, just continuing to go back to like what you're doing outside the X's and the O's, and believing in yourself, that will transfer to believing in your players. And once your players believe in you and they know that you have that belief in them as well, I feel like the gates open up. But I feel like the hardest part is like finding that self-belief first to then transfer it in to your players, into your team, into your culture. So any words of wisdom on how to continue to establish that like self-belief that you can then transfer in to how you train and deal with players would be greatly appreciated.
Kat, thank you so much. I mean, it was great to. I remember that time when we met together at the convention, and it was such a wonderful moment, because and that's what's always special to me, really. It's quite, as an author, as a speaker, you never quite know how far the words and the ideas and the principles travel. It's impossible to tell. And so when I meet people like I did you that day, Kat, and heard some of the stories that you had for me, and real changes that you're able to make with your players, for yourself, and but also your team, is always so special for me. And that inspires me, that right back, and you inspire me as well. So thank you. Self-belief is, there is this idea, there's a phrase that goes like this: the health of the team is reflected in the face of the coach. The health of the team is reflected in the face of the coach. And so if we want to be able to give something to our players, we must first have that internally ourselves. If I don't have any change in my pocket, it's impossible to give it away to someone who might need it the most. If I don't really accept myself at a deep level, then it's very hard for me to accept others and to help others. If I don't have any self-confidence or self-belief, then if I really don't believe in what it is that I'm saying and doing, then the players are going to pick up on that straight away. In fact, I was listening to a coach the other day, and he said to me, Tom, I read a great phrase. It said it takes the coach 6 weeks to figure out and understand their players. it takes the players 6 minutes to figure out and understand their coach. And I thought that was a great quote. And of course, players are very quick to figure out their coach. What does that mean, figure them out? It means figure out where the borders are, where the boundaries for behavior are, figure out whether they know what they're talking about or not. Do they have knowledge? Do they have the experience? But more importantly than all, do they really believe in what it is that they are saying? Because there's that quote from Maya Angelou that says, I don't care how much you know until I know how much you care. I don't care how much you know until I know how much you care. So when we approach our players from the perspective of building the relationship, we were speaking about chapter 1, the relationship coach. When we approach this idea of coaching our players to understand them as people first, to see the world through their eyes, we can infuse a level of belief in ourselves through service to others. It's kind of a paradox. How could I possibly believe in myself more through service to others? Because I get out the way of my own self. I get out the way of my own ego. And a lot of the times coaches struggle with this idea of believing in themselves, because a marker of self-belief is the outcome. They measure themselves on the outcome of the game. They measure themselves on the result. They measure themselves on, did we win by 4 or 3? They measure themselves on, are we top of the league or not? To satisfy the parents or the academy director or the sporting director or the head coach or whatever, we have this idea of measuring ourselves by the outcome. So if we can start to shift that focus away from this sort of egocentric idea that I'm being measured by the results and just the outcomes, then we give ourselves a chance to measure ourselves by something that is much more important, much more of value, which is helping young people to grow, which is appealing to this sense of installing self-esteem, boosting self-belief in others, being of service to the players. So if we're able to build relationships to be a servant leader for our players, then that's a very grounding, very strong, very enduring place to start from. But I think inevitably we can't get away from the reality of the fact that we need to continually improve on ourselves. That doesn't just mean the subject content or knowledge. That also means working on ourselves. So this is why this is a book for the coach to work on themselves to get the best from their players. And so that is a continuous process of improvement every single day. And self-belief is just one of those aspects.
That's a brilliant answer. Steve, we'll come to you next. But Kat, do you want to share that quote? Or did you share that earlier? Do you want to share what that quote is?
Let me get it out of my book. Hold on. It says, to empower, we must understand. To understand, we must connect. Find the values of each athlete, thus negotiate the program based on individual needs. And then on the back of it, it says, lasting success comes from struggle. Right on the other side of challenge lies growth.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Steve, do you want to jump in there?
Briefly on that one.
Yeah.
Growth lies just on the other side of challenge. Is this idea of, not just for the players, but also ourselves. Kat asked about self-belief as a coach. Well, if I'm able to put myself in uncomfortable scenarios, if I'm able to lead team meetings, for example, with the parents that are listening, and that's outside of my comfort zone, then I'm growing in a certain way. I'm gaining self-belief and putting myself in a situation where I'm stretching myself. I'm challenging myself. And each of us have the opportunity to do that as coaches.
Super. I think you put that so eloquently well. And we know that most of our growth does happen outside of our comfort zone. Steve, if you want to jump in there, we do have a question from Barry Webb from Cornwall who says, hi, Tom. But I'll let Steve jump in there too first.
Yeah, Tom, just when we look at principle 9 in the book about managing the self, which is the quote, health of the team is reflected in the face of the coach. In the current situation that we all find ourselves in, obviously there's growing anxiety. On top of the anxiety, people are becoming frustrated, probably angry as well that they're stuck in their homes. And in that principle 9, there's something you wrote that says cool and calm breeds clear and confident. What recommendation would you give to coaches right now that are probably feeling anxious, having to deal with family life at home? Everybody's on top of each other, and they're now trying to do online learning with their teams, how they can manage that cool and calm so that they can exhibit that clear and confident.
Thank you, Steve. Yeah, that's a wonderful reminder, especially to myself as well. So I just because I wrote the book, I don't claim to have mastered these principles myself. It's managing self is this idea that, like I just said, that we are constantly, every single day, coming back to self, working on self. And that's a process that I put myself into as well. So there's a wonderful speaker and psychologist who's passed on now, Dr. Wayne Dyer, and he has one of the greatest phrases that I'll ever remember about perception. He says this: when we change the way that we look at things, the things we look at change. When we change the way we look at things, the things we look at change. And so at this moment in time, there's a lot of things that we can't necessarily control. We can't control the global landscape. We can't control when we're going to be released into our societies again. We can't control that we can't get to be with our teams, with our coach. We can't control many things about the situation. But other great speakers and teachers before us have always taught us this principle that there are things that we can control. There are things that we can influence. And normally, you know, this idea that John Wooden was speaking about, don't let what you can't do get in the way of what you can do. Don't let what you can't do get in the way of what you can do. And so when we're speaking about cool and calm breeds clear and confident, this requires a level of to shift the way that we see things, as Dr. Wayne Dyer is saying. And actually, if we look around us at this moment in time, one of the challenges that I give to my athletes and my coaches and teams that I'm working with is, can you see the blessings in your environment? And can you talk about those blessings on a more regular basis than the burdens that you're faced with? Can you see the opportunities? So when Dr. Wayne Dyer is talking about changing the way that we see things, he's really speaking about finding the opportunities, reframing the situation. So when you change the picture frame around the outside of a photo, the photo takes on a different landscape. It takes on a different meaning. If we're able to reframe, change the way that we see things, change the way that we see the situation, focus on the opportunities that we have, there's a lot more that we can do than we realize. So what I can do is work on my individual programs in my back garden or at the local park with a family member. I can log online and connect with my coaches, with my teammates, with the people that I love and care about. I can research my favorite players. I can look at their skills. If I've got footage of myself, I can look back over previous performances and learn and reflect and re-energize. I can write down my goals for the time that we do come back. I can get physically fit wherever I am. If I've got a space on my bedroom floor, for example, there's a lot of core work that I can do. That's just from a player's perspective. Or I can record.
Tom, you should do some bench work.
Say that again, Chris.
You should do some work on the bench press. You're in the flow there. You're on the. Say what?
How do you know I'm not?
Okay, I can tell. Sorry. Carry on. You were in the flow there. I shouldn't. I should have waited. Timing's important in comedy, and I missed the window.
It's the delay. I think your timing was perfect. It's just the delay through the incident.
Thank you. Thank you.
The basic simple message is there are a lot of opportunities right now, and we have to have the eyes to see them. So if I'm a coach, am I teaching my players? Am I helping them to see those opportunities? Am I helping them to see the horizon? Am I injecting energy in the conversations that I have with them? Am I inspiring them about what they can become, the opportunities that will present themselves down the line? Am I helping them to prepare for the moment when we all come back together again and there's that fresh new energy? Am I helping them to dream? Am I helping them to focus on what they can be? And that's a very important part of being a coach. In fact, in the end, that becomes one of the most defining parts of being a coach. That's what separates the good from the great.
Very eloquently put there. Steve, what a great question that was, and Tom, what a great answer, until it was rudely interrupted by myself there. Say what, Tom?
You used to be so good at this.
I know. I was trying. I even got the introduction wrong. Under pressure. Quarantine week 7. But I've been in quarantine most of my life, for those that know me. Just everybody just put me to the side or stays away. So this question is from Barry Webb, and you've already answered some of them. He said, can you give us a couple of examples in your beliefs as a coach that can underpin you from the book? Give us a couple of examples of your beliefs, Tom, from the book that underpin you as a coach.
Absolutely. One of the core ones is the 80-20 principle. The 80-20 principle is 80% focus on us, 20% on them. Sometimes as coaches, we spend so much time focusing on the opposition's strengths, what they do, how to combat that, how to beat them. And other times when we focus too much on the opposition, we become fearful. We build them up and we reduce our level of self-belief in ourselves. So one of the principles that underpins me as a person, as a coach, is let's focus on us first. Let the opposition worry about us, not neglect them completely. Let's recognize what they're good at and use our strengths to overcome, to beat them. Let's focus on us. Let's focus on what we can do rather than what they can do. And so the 80-20 principle from the book is really all about building and harnessing that emotional energy, focusing on our own strengths to be able to combat those of others, because what we focus on, we feel. So if I'm focusing on my own strengths, on my own capabilities, then automatically it links back to what Kat was saying. My own self-belief is going to grow because I'm thinking about what I can do, not on what I can't. And so I'm not going to be fearful about the opposition because I'm confident within myself. And this isn't just dreamed up confidence either, it's worth saying. This is a very real, tangible process where we have to work hard. This is going out there and putting in the hours of practice day in, day out to be confident. So when you get to match day, you can be confident, you can tick those boxes, because when you look back on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I've done the work necessary to be the best that I'm capable of. So the 80-20 principle is very, very important to me. Steve already mentioned it in chapter 1, the relationship coach. That really is underpins everything. It's the reason why it's the first chapter, because when we start to look at our players as people and think about the real human connections that define performance, we understand that technical tactical is unquestionably extremely important. The physical preparation is undeniably crucial. So technical, tactical, physical, obvious, but in the end, this common denominator of all of the great coaches appears again and again, to understand the individual differences of our players, to respond to them and get the best from each individual and the team as a collective. And that for me is about building effective relationships with people, because as Maya Angelou says, people will forget what you said, they'll forget what you did, but they'll never forget the way you made them feel. And when I think back to the greatest teachers that I've had as a coach, why do those, we can ask ourselves that question, can't we? Who was the most positive influence on me in my life? Who's been the best coach that I've ever had? And we'll think back and sometimes we'll say, yeah, they did have the content and the context knowledge and the intellectual capacity to understand the subject matter, but there was something else about them. They injected enthusiasm. They made me feel valued. They really got me. They understood who I was and where I was coming from. They went the extra mile to make me feel special. So these traits in the end are the lasting, enduring traits of the great coaches that we've had, and they stand out again and again. And so that's why the questions that Joe Ehrmann asks in his book, Inside Out Coaching, are so very important. How would it feel to be coached by me?
Fantastic. Steve, you want to jump in there?
Yeah, I think it's great, and that was a great question from Barry. You know, when Tom talks about the 80-20, that's something that I always try to talk to the players about as well. You know, recognizing who the opponent is very quickly, what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, and going back to what we talked about earlier with the relationship coach, that relationship that I then establish with my players, working through the 80-20, gives them a sense of ownership, and it's part of our team agreed upon behaviors and standards. So listening to Tom talk about that, it's just, again, it reiterates a lot of what I've been doing. So it serves a great purpose for me because, you know, I now understand the job that I've been hired to do. I understand the job the kids expect me to do. The standards and expectations I set for myself are constantly being evaluated and reevaluated by the players because they have that voice. And again, that ties into, you know, building the positive attitude and creating a landscape that is a leadership landscape.
I think that's brilliant. Tom, do you want to jump in there before we go to Kat to add to that?
I just want to bounce off a few of you right now, actually, and open this up a little bit because it's something that we discussed at the convention, and it's really a question to all of you and part of the discussion. You know, when Steve is speaking about ownership and empowerment, when we've had conversations in the past, it's led us to really focus on this idea that to a large extent, the coach's job is to build a player who is capable of performing in the absence of them. And this is something, as you know, that features in the book from a story from my time at Barcelona, but maybe we won't go into that now, but it's something that I experienced and learned. And so I would just ask you guys really, how important do you think that is? And what are some of the things that you do as coaches to help the player, as Steve says, take ownership, feel empowered, but ultimately perform independently in the absence of your direct intervention? What are some of the things that you guys do?
Kat?
Yeah, good question. So kind of the whole 80-20 coach part, I've somewhat turned it into my players being more like 80-20 players. Like, know your opponents, but they often step out on the field. Like if we're playing one of like our rivals, they're like, oh my gosh, they're so good. And they're so focused on those players and what they can do and what the other team is good at. And they fail to forget what we've prepped for and how good they can be. And so trying to challenge them to be more 80-20 players. So yeah, we know their strengths, their weaknesses, but what can we do as a team? What can you individually do as a team in this moment to get us through? And each player has like their role within the team, and we've done some team building, especially now in these times that we're in, like Zoom calls. How can you best affect your team? Like, what do you bring to the team that you kind of provide, whether it's on the field, off the field, as a leader, as a silent leader? What are you doing to help your team? And then as a team, like, what do you think that this individual person brings to the team? So now we're having this whole collaboration discussion. Well, I'm a good leader and I'm aggressive and I'm a ball winner, but my teammates also see me as these 3 or 4 things. So now it's starting to build like a self-belief inside our squad of like, oh, my teammates think I'm good at this. And I feel like once we get back out on the field, that's only going to help reestablish us as like a core unit, because we've been together, we meet every week, we're constantly building each other up, we do game review, and oh, you did this well, but I think you could have done this. So I'm making them basically own the team and kind of taking myself out and guide the discussion, but let them step in and basically run the team so that they start to understand and see the game. Because eventually they all moved on to different coaches. So what are lasting impressions that I can leave as a coach, for them as people, but for them as players as well. Like, what are their takeaways for me as a coach that's going to lead them into the next steps as players?
Brilliant. Tom, I see you nodding. Did you have something to add there, or a comment back for Kat?
Kat constantly reminds me of these simple, actionable strategies that we can put into place, and she asks such great questions. You know, when she's speaking about giving the players the opportunity to share their insights about each other, that can be incredibly empowering. You know, there are simple tools that we can use. Can you give the players the opportunity to give debriefs at halftime or at the end of the match? Can the players take ownership of the game plan? Can they get there at the front of the team, and can we rotate that around? So 2 players at the start of each game, can they take the team talk with the tactics board? Can there be 2 players that are responsible for the dressing room's kit being laid out? Can they be functioning independently, you know, as a team that doesn't require the coach to constantly come in? When you have a strong enough culture within the dressing room, the players tend to lead that very, very well. So when Kat is speaking about encouraging communication with the players, that is one of the most fundamental things that you can do, and it doesn't cost a lot of money. This isn't something that you have to buy on the internet for thousands of dollars. It's free and easy to put into place if you understand the importance of it. So there are very simple, actionable strategies to empower our players. Now, I love what Kat was saying.
Yeah, and just to jump off of that, being cognizant of the delay, you know, we do a session called Super Strengths, right? What are the 3 super strengths that got you here? Because, you know, with Steve, I first met Steve about 10 years ago at a Rush Select event, which was getting all the best players or the best nominated players from around the country and those who could afford it, and we take them to this event. So we took a few leaves out of Mr. Beswick's book about a player psychological profile, right? How do you deal with this? How do you deal with that? And then we started to put people together and say, okay, what is your super strengths? What got you here? Do you believe in yourself? Da, 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 da. And now what we did was we flipped that, and with players that started to know each other, we started to get them to talk about 2 things. So Tom, I talked about 2 things I admire about you and your play. So now we're, like Kat said, giving it, and we focused on the super strengths. But what we did was it helped the players, even as young as 9 and 10, realize and recognize, wow, I didn't realize somebody else admired this about me. And they wanted to do that even more to you know, get those, not just the accolades, but the words of affirmation, as opposed to just praise and becoming praise junkies, help those players become even more tuned in and invested. So I thought that was important to say, and good stuff there from Kat. Steve, do you want to jump on that?
Yeah, it's you know, again, it just goes back to like-minded people. You know, we're connected for a reason. We truly care about player education, player development. We truly care about coach development, coach education. We collaborate to ensure that our ideas are being received by other coaches and implemented. As a coach educator, I always say that it's easier for me to influence, and Tom knows why I use the word influence, not impact. It's easier for me to influence one coach who can influence 15 players as opposed to me trying to go out there and influence the players. So if we can constantly share ideas like this, like what Kat just had and what you were just talking about, Chris, the more that we can influence coaches to implement these ways with players to allow them to feel empowered, to give them a voice, give them a choice, we're going to create playmakers of the future.
Great phrase.
Not just the future coach, but playmaker of the future too. Do you want to expand on that, Tom?
I love it. I mean, I was listening to a YouTube video this morning, The Best of Les Brown. He's someone that has inspired and influenced me, although I've never met him, but I've studied his work and have listened to various different resources that he has. And he was speaking about OQP. OQP. If you really want to be the best at what you do, if you want to stretch yourself to go further than you've ever been before, if you want something that you've never had before, if you want to reach your goals and achieve your dreams, and sometimes let's remember, the dream of the coach can be to empower the players. It doesn't have to be to, to win the Super Bowl or to win the MLS or whatever, but you have to live by this principle of OQP, only quality people. We have to surround ourselves with the people that lift us up, that inspire us. We have to think of ourselves as coaches in that way. And we have to build that kitchen cabinet of people that are able to influence us, to help us learn. And so then when Steve is speaking about we're together for a reason, there is no doubt in my mind that we're doing this for a reason. And the reason is to be able to help others as much as possible, to learn ourselves, to continuously improve ourselves so that we can help others, our players and other coaches that are out there, to live a life in service to others. I know that might sound a little bit deep and profound, but more now over the last 5 years, I think a shift from gaining the accolades myself and achievements, and there have been some over the years, but like I said, the hidden curriculum, the great success, if you like, the greatest success, is when you see others grow, learn and improve to better themselves. So that's the driver for me, and I know that at a fundamental level, we're talking about values here, values, coaching values, life values, and it's important, as Les Brown is talking about, to surround ourselves with only quality people, OQP.
Fantastic. I'm not sure how I got into your list, Tom, but I appreciate that. Maybe it was by default. So this comes in from the birthday girl, Deborah. Happy birthday, Debbie. She's a retired PE teacher, and she has a couple of things. She says, don't you feel believing in yourself is the core value of life in whatever you do? And this is a retired PE teacher who's her birthday. I think that's a very short answer to that, right, Tom?
Well, the short answer is wishing you a very happy birthday. Thanks for tuning in on your birthday, by the way. So thank you for that. And of course, the answer is yes. There's a film out there that's turned into a book called The Secret. And one of the phrases from that book and from that film is that if you can see it in your mind, you're going to hold it in your hand. If you can see it in your mind, you're going to hold it in your hand. That's very important. When we look on over the past great success and achievements of anyone who's actually achieved anything magnificent, sport, business, music, art, life, whatever, they've believed that they can achieve it before they've actually achieved it. That's what champions do. They believe that they can achieve before they achieve, so that the achievement itself is, to steal a word from Steve, an affirmation of what they already believe. It's like if we have to, in order to achieve something for ourselves, we have to first expect it. And that's why we have to believe before we achieve. Muhammad Ali is perhaps one of the most famous cases of all. He said he called himself the greatest. I am the greatest. Even before he'd won that super heavyweight championship for the first time. I am the greatest, because he believed that to be true for him. And by virtue of affirming that belief over and over and over again, Mike Tyson said, I'm getting better every day in every way. And he would repeat that to himself every single day, even before he was the super heavyweight champion as well. So for every single person, whoever you are, wherever you are, self-belief, believing that you can achieve something is, of course, the cornerstone, the very foundation to any achievement endeavor.
Fantastic. That was not the short answer. We'll put that on the Twitter, but no, it was a great answer, Tom. It was a great answer. So
time limit now, 30 seconds to answer these.
No time limit right now, but if there's further questions from the audience, please type them in. And Tom, I think you touched upon some really key things, right? Just seeing the opportunities and blessings in this time, right? as coaches, you heard Kat and Steve talk about some of the stuff they're doing, reaching out to their coaches. How are we helping children see the positives in this? How are we helping parents see the positive of this? And this might be parents who may have just been furloughed. They are stuck at home, or maybe it's the parent that's the essential worker that's working on the front line, like at the hospitals and stuff like that. But you know, what advice would you give to people watching this from any standpoint?
It's a very good question. First of all, just to pick up on something, those of us that are at home, I don't believe that we are stuck at home. I believe that we are safe at home. It's a key difference. We're not stuck at home, we're safe at home. When we change the way we look at things, the things that we look at change. And of course, this is not to say that everything is sunshine and rainbows. This is a very real, significant global challenge that we are all faced with. But let's try not to make the situation worse than it is. Let's not try to pretend that it's better than it is. Let's see it as it is. And as Coach John Wooden said, let's not let what we can't do get in the way of what we can do. But I have written down some things, some general principles that I'd like to share with people, some of the things that I've been taught, some of the things that I'm teaching others, for parents, for coaches, for families at home. Number one is connect with team energy. Connect on a regular basis. I know that you can't do that physically, but we can do that virtually. FaceTimes, Zoom calls, go-to meetings, whatever it is, whatever platform you use. Skype is out there. Very easily, simple, downloadable onto your mobile device or your laptop, and you can connect with your loved ones on a regular basis. So connect with the people that lift you up, that boost you up, that energize and inspire you, and not bring you down. It's very important. It's very important. Number two, adapt and overcome. There are things that we can't do, but how creative can you be when you can train given the resources that you have? Do you have a back garden? Do you have a patio at the back? Do you have a soft rubber ball that you might be able to play with in your bedroom? There are things that we can do, again, to adapt and overcome and be creative. For parents who are furloughed at home, then a significant, proportion of their salaries will have been taken away. And for me and myself, I can only speak from my own frame of reference that as a self-employed consultant and coach, of course, part of this pandemic has led to a reduction in income. But what I've realized is that reflecting back some of the things that I was doing, even though I would have perhaps had a higher income, the flip side is since I've slowed that down or been forced to have slowed that down, I'm thinking more about the things that I couldn't do before because I was so busy and rushing around. There was a busyness. The world was very busy. So when I slow down a little bit, I focus on the blessings that I have, which are my children, my 3 children. I have a dog here. I have a wonderful back garden. I'm blessed and privileged to have that. And simple things like getting jobs done around the house, getting a feeling of satisfaction around doing that job that couldn't be done before because I was so busy. Thinking about those things that we can do rather than what we can't do. Number 3, gratitude changes attitude. When we focus on and feel thankful for the things that we've got, we tend to see our burdens and problems less because we start to see the things that we have, not what we don't have. Gratitude changes attitude. What I focus on, I feel. There are blessings everywhere around us if we have the eyes to see them. So make a list. Tell that person that you love them over and again. Spend time to read your children bedtime stories if they're young and you haven't been able to because you've been busy like I have. So I read my son a bedtime story for the first time in a long time, I'm afraid to say. But for me, we ended up connecting. He's 3.5 on a way that we hadn't done before. That's a real and true story. But it's important because for each and every one of us, we have this opportunity now to slow ourselves down a little bit. And actually, in all truthfulness, I might not go back to some of the things that actually paid me more, but took me away from the things that I found to be more important to me in my life. So it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity for us to reflect, to reinforce, and to make some changes. Gratitude changes attitude. Number 4, get real. Don't tune in to this 24-hour-a-day news feed around the pandemic. If it doesn't serve you, if you don't feel empowered, if it doesn't make a positive difference in your life to be constantly plugged into the media, if it drains you emotionally, then stay away from it. If you must, I put get real here by tuning into the most trusted scientific medical advice that you can get. Normally that's the government's chief medical advisors, or it is here in England. And I tune in at 5 o'clock for 10 minutes, get the update, switch off, unplug, check out, get away from it, and get back to the things that I feel blessed to have and that I can be working on right now. Okay, so get real. Do not at all costs get into this social media noise of the newsfeed and scroll, endless scrolling around the rumors, around the nonsense and noise around this whole situation. Focus on what we can do, not what we can't. Get real. Control you. Stay in control of what you can control. That means choosing how you think, feel, operate, your daily routine. What are the healthy habits that you can do? Can you do more exercise than you could do before with this time that you've been given? So control you, control the space in which you operate. Stay present. Do not time travel. No one knows how long this is going to go for. If I am continuously frustrated because I'm thinking into the future, or I'm anxious about how this is going to go in the future, I'm missing this present moment in time. If I'm thinking back into the past and I feel like I'm reflecting negatively or missing out on those things that happened in the past, and will they come to be in the future again, I'm missing this moment in time, what I call present moment focus. So the ability to stay present is very, very important. Change the conversation. This is a big one. At the moment, when we connect with our friends, sometimes there's a tendency to talk about how bad the situation is, and to speak about the pandemic, to speak about the coronavirus, to speak about how many countries it's in. You know, when we spend our time speaking about it over and over and over and over again, we're actually conditioning ourselves at a very emotional level, psychological level. So change the conversation. Do something different, you know. Speak about something else. Speak about a dream that you've got. Speak about what it is that you're working on right now. Speak about your exercise regime. Speak about the nutrition that you've changed. And that leads us into doing something new. Can you, even if it's a meal, it's a new meal in the kitchen that you've never cooked before, or it's a slightly different twist on that meal that you've prepared previously, or changing the furniture in a room, varieties of human need. Try something new, do something different. Anything other than get stuck in the same routine day after day. Life becomes a treadmill. That leads us into have fun. Have fun. Do the things you love. Do the things you enjoy. I'm learning to play the piano. That's something new. I enjoy it. It's my time and space. It's very important to have your own time and space to do something that you enjoy. And if you can, have as much fun as possible.
That was 9, right? That was 9, Tom. Just like the principles in the book.
Yeah, it is. And number 10 is, in all seriousness, don't overthink too much about this. It ties into staying present. All of us are going to be affected by this in some way, shape, or form. But I believe that inside each and every one of us is a real capacity to overcome this great challenge. The resources that we have inside of us. If it wasn't true that we weren't capable of responding to the many great challenges that we've faced in the history of mankind, we simply wouldn't be here right now. And the truth is, we are resourceful enough. We are going to overcome this challenge, and we're going to come out the other side. And I believe that humanity as a whole will be much better in the end on the other side of this. Life is going to be magnificent, much better than before. And it's an opportunity for us to really think about how we are going to re-emerge from this together in a better way.
Absolutely spot on there. I completely agree with you. And I love the way you corrected me when I said stay stuck at home. You said we're safe at home. And I think that was massive. And the importance of language there and how we look to frame things and stuff like that. Just to run through these 10 things again, there's 9 principles in the book, but we'll run through the 10 things. Was connect with team and energy, adapt and overcome, gratitude changes attitude, get real, control you, stay present, change the conversation, do something new. Number 9 was have fun, and number 10 was don't overthink it. You know, but there are 9 principles in the book, but you just thought you'd throw an extra one in here to have 10. Tom, quick question on a serious note, and that was the treble clef. Is the piano in the room, and do you want to give us a little bit of a rendition while you're there?
Well, the piano is in the room, but no, I don't want to give you a rendition because then you're going to find out how. No, of course I will. So let me just take. I might just have to take off a few of my things on the laptop here. You'll be able to see here.
Can you do you do requests?
Why not? Yeah, have you got a request for me?
Let's do Imagine, and let's have a little sing along.
Imagine. Oh my goodness, I don't know how I'm going to place you on here. Let me try and-
You know what? You play whatever you want, Thomas, and we'll get Steve to sing along.
All right, let me just. I'm going to try and see if I can put you here somewhere. Let me see if I can do this. And we can go like, can you see me?
We can see you, yeah.
Okay, this is it. Ready? That's it.
That's it. That was fantastic. It was. I'll name that tune in 3.
And I don't know the next part yet.
That's okay. So Barry Webb says, great effort, Tom. Damon Frederick, my friend from Missouri, says, your vulnerability is refreshing. I don't know whether that's a compliment or an insult, but fantastic. We love that you did that.
No, it's a wonderful thing, isn't it? Vulnerability. It's a great comment. Who said that?
That was Damien from Missouri, my good mucker. Debbie just says this comment. It is a birthday, so we do have to say the comment. She says, Tom resonates a spiritual side of life in general. So I think what she's saying is you have a very calming influence there, and we appreciate that. I felt that the first time we ever met. I think that's important to say for someone of your age. You have maturity and a wiseness beyond your years, and you have this calming influence and welcoming demeanor about you that is so refreshing, and you know, just makes you who you are and what you are. And thank you for that.
I have to just say, as Einstein has very famously said, if I've seen further than most, it's because I've been standing on the shoulders of giants. If I've seen further than most, or it could have been Isaac Newton, one of them, Newton or Einstein. Both are great to research and study. But I mean, the point is, of course, that I've been very blessed to have some wonderful teachers, and credit is due to those teachers. And of course, doing things like this, I really do. I genuinely learn so much from speaking with you guys as well. And this is one of the things that I love to do. This is something that I'm practicing for myself. I love to connect with my team energy. You're on that team. I love to learn and hear your stories as well. And I think all credit to everybody else really that joins in the journey. And the other thing about Debbie's comment about spirituality, you know, there's each and every one of us has a spirit to connect and reflect and grow, and it's a very important part of our journey as coaches, as people. So thank you very much for having me on again. It's great to have done this with you.
Yeah, no, we love having you. And before I turn over to Kat and Steve and ask if there's any more questions, and be sensitive to your time, because I know it's probably new meal time that you're going to try and cook. Let's talk about the book, where people can get it, but also the website, and the course, and the way they can register for the course and what they can expect.
Sure. Well, the Future Coach is really, I guess you could say, an amalgamation of all of the things we've been discussing in a little bit more detail. There are stories from my experiences as a coach in the academy, in first team, in senior football, from the English Premier League, and working with international teams and players in the championship in different sports, and lessons from teachers, great teachers that I've had up to this point in my life. And it's a book really that, it's a book that I wish I'd read on my own journey as a coach a long time ago. And I think the Future Coach course online is an opportunity to interact a little bit more with other like-minded people. So of course, Steve, Kat, yourself are course ambassadors for the Future Coach course online. It's based on the 9 principles.
Is that an 80-20 split? I'm just...
Well, actually, what we've done is we've created a free introductory course for coaches that want to just get a flavor for some of the principles in a little bit more detail, and take part in quiz questions and share some of their experiences. And that's the great power of the reason why we wanted to make it interactive and engaging, so that coaches could come on board and share their experiences and connect with other coaches who are challenged in a similar way. Because that's one of the great powers of creating a community of coaches, that we can share and learn in a collaborative, integrated way to help us move forward. So the Future Coach course online is also available for the first, for a free introduction, and available for anyone around the world. So whatever country you're in, if you've got an internet connection, you can jump on there and go to tombatescoaching.com, and you'll be able to find links to the Future Coach course introductory free version, and there's the paid version is also available for you as well. The book is available on Amazon, doing very well. But I think we should come up with a way of giving one of the guys that tune into this a free copy of the book, and I'll have it sent out over there. So you just let me know how we should do that, and maybe we should to Debbie. It's her birthday today. Maybe we should give a free signed copy of the book to Debbie on her birthday. What do you think about that?
I think that's great. And yes, Debbie, Barry said yes, please, for the free book. And then Damien says he'll take it for his question, and then getting you to play the piano. But I think, yeah, what you do is, Tom, send 2 over, send them to me, and I'll get it to Debbie. Sign them both, please.
No problem.
All right, and we'll get that. And just for people tuning in, you know, Tom did mention he's a UEFA A license, so he's worked at he's gone the coaching aspect, he's also gone the psychology aspect. He's also done a TED talk that was fantastic, which is how I first connected. He's been on Johnny O'Sullivan's Way of Champions podcast twice. I think this is his 3rd time with us, so 3-2 up. We're up 3-2 against Johnny right now, and you know, as you see, Tom is genuine. He's real. He's a great man. But Steve, Kat, I'll give something to let you guys wind it up, and see if there's any more questions coming in as well.
Kat, you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first. So I can't speak highly enough about this book. Like, I know I'm a course ambassador, and like that's what I'm supposed to say, but even if I wasn't a course ambassador, I've read the book 3 different times, and every time I read it, I have to have a different color pen and a different color highlighter, and there's notes all over the place, and I date it so I know like when I made certain notes, and the overwhelming like calm and refreshness I feel every time I read through the book. It just kind of restarts and re-engages and relights a fire inside of me, so that I can pour in not only to my team but into my coaches and into myself. So the best thing I really love about the course is the online forum and getting to engage with other coaches from around the world that are going through the same struggles that everybody else is going through. And it's just a place to kind of come together and talk and bounce ideas off of each other, where I haven't had that before, and I don't have a ton of people that I can just bounce ideas off of, because the whole sports psychology, thinking about yourself, thinking about the mental game is kind of a new phenomenon. I feel like that's sweeping. So there's not a lot of people that I really feel like I can engage with about it. So having the book by my side, but also having other coaches, having Chris, Steve, Tom, that I know I can dive into and ask questions and bounce ideas off of. It's kind of refreshing to know that there are other like-minded people out there that struggle, have the same questions, and that we can all kind of come together. So I highly recommend it. If you haven't read the book, have highlighters and pens ready, because there's lots of good takeaways to come from it.
Brilliant, Kat. I'm gonna challenge you a little bit here. I'm gonna say when we change the way we look at things, the things we look at change. Okay. And you said struggles as opposed to opportunities. So I just want to highlight that there. I see Tom smiling. Tom, can we find a way of maybe doing a discount on the book, or is that something we can talk about offline, just to get a few more and get people on the free course and just because I think what Kat said is spot on. And the fact that she's read it 3 times. I lent mine and somebody stole my book. So if you're on this webinar, I'm coming, I'm looking for you. Steve.
Of course, no, absolutely. Just to answer that straight away, I mean, obviously we're going to do the 2 free signed copies, but and on Amazon, it's, I think, I don't know what the dollars exchange is, but in pounds, it's like £12.99, £13, something like that. So yeah, for sure, we can do it for, you know, discounted rates to anybody who's interested. You can see I've got a couple of copies here in the house, and those could be cheaper and sent out. So yeah, it's also online, by the way, in Kindle format as well, which is a little bit cheaper, I believe, than buying the actual hard copy. So the benefits financially there, but we can certainly talk about discounted rates for sure.
Oh, you know what? Maybe we'll just drive them to the website and they can do the free course as well. So Mauricio's asking, can I get the book out of the US? Mauricio, I think that's answered there because you can get it on Kindle. Barry Webb has just said, thank you. This is a great experience, refreshing and inspiring. Barry and I met online through the FA Hive Learning and stuff like that. And Barry's been a regular attendant to our webinars. But Steve, over to you before we let Tom wrap it up.
Yeah, I'll just say something very simple and very quick. It's important that we recognize that we're not trying to get through this. We're trying to grow through this.
Tom, write that one down. I think that's brilliant, Steve. We are trying to grow through this. Tom, any final words? How can people reach you apart from the Tom Bates coaching? I know you're active on Twitter. Maybe not as active now because you're home with Josiah, Isabel, and Noah and enjoying them immensely, which I had the pleasure of meeting, and the dog. Can't remember the dog's name though.
Yeah, Oscar.
Okay, I thought you'd renamed it Chris, but that's. But Tom, talk to us. Talk to us. Any final words?
I just thank you very much. Thank you. Genuinely love doing this with you all. I hope it's been useful. Of course, there is the website, tombatescoaching.com. The book is available online in various different places, Amazon being the easiest place to access the material. Online is faster than buying the actual hard copy. The social media is also another way to contact me. So Twitter, Instagram, I have a YouTube channel. It's easily searchable. There's more videos conducted and interviews with professional athletes and other people that have interviewed me. The TED Talk is live there, some real practical sessions that have incorporated psychology into coaching. The live seminar that we did, the Future Coach seminar here at Derby County just 3-4 weeks ago, will be also available online for people to click on, and that was hosted with myself and Lee Carsley, who is the England under-21 assistant coach to Eddie Boothroyd. Lee came with me to deliver. So there's a bunch of resources online. You can find me all of the usual places on social, but more importantly than all, I think I'll just take this opportunity to wish everybody, whoever you are, wherever you are in the world tuning in, a very safe and happy and healthier time ahead, and God bless you all.
Thanks, Tom. Fantastic. Thanks everybody for joining us. Thanks everybody who will watch this later. This was Tom Bates live from his his living room and his piano room. So this is going to go. Tom will send this one back, and you can put this on your YouTube channel too.
Thank you very much, Chris.
Tom, we'll talk soon. Thanks. See you, everybody. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.